Welcome to everyone again, and thanks for jumping on here and giving us some time. And as we continue to try to give you guys, to our players, some information and something new to keep you guys busy and finding ways to get better and improve through this difficult time here. Today, as I'm sure most of you know from your coaches or from the email, we have Wendi Irlbeck as our guest. She's a personal trainer and nutritionist. She spoke to most of our D8 program in the past one time, which I thought was really, really valuable. And I know we all learned a lot at that point. I know she also works with a couple of our players individually. So we have a little bit of experience. And I think having the opportunity to have Wendi come today and speak to us and give us a little bit more insight and kind of a presentation on, maybe touch on some things during isolation and this strange time. And she'll really focus on what you guys can do as elite athletes to give yourself an advantage, which I think we all believe is huge, to give yourself an extra area you can have a competitive advantage in against your teammates and against your opposition moving forward, and just continue with healthy training habits. So thanks a lot, Wendi. Really appreciate you coming on. As soon as we talked about this, I think you were one of the first people we wanted to bring in to share some insight in this time. And I know we all learned a lot last time, so really excited about the next half hour or 45 minutes, however long we spend here. So I think just before you can kind of take over and introduce yourself and get on with the real important stuff, if you want to kind of just take the reins with it, I'll kind of follow through on the presentation so anyone can see that. If anyone just got on, the presentation is on your right, you can click on it. And if you have questions, guys, as always, type them in the text box there and I can kind of monitor those. And if they're relevant to what we're doing at the time, I know Wendi will jump in and she'll address those as it comes. And hopefully we'll have some time at the end for some Q&A as well. So Wendi, welcome. Thanks again for coming. And take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lewis. I really appreciate the compliment of being the first person you thought of. I truly mean that, because I'm very passionate about nutrition, and being new to Michigan, I'm really trying to do what I can to support coaches across all sports and athletic teams. So thank you so much for thinking of me. It's a true honor. Again, I just love how many people are on this. It's just great how we can continue to connect, even though we're restricted to the stay-at-home order. So I think that's neat. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And I am relatively new to Google Hangout. I never use it. I use Zoom and WebEx. So if I'm not the best at this, so bear with me. But Lewis, are you going to kind of run the presentation, like as far as clicking it? I'm unable to.
I'll click next whenever you want.
Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. So, perfect. So if you want to just go to the first slide, if you're able to do that. Great.
Which
awesome.
One?
So the very top slide, the front, the cover slide. Gotcha. Would be great.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. So just with the title, I guess I didn't really know what to title this, because I think right now nutrition is always important, but especially right now, just being really diligent about having good habits, because as I've talked about, I was talking to West Virginia Soccer Association podcast on Tuesday. They were kind of just, asking a lot of great questions, but it's really just getting back to the basics, and that's truly what I'm all about. So very vaguely about my background, I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist. I work with a lot of adolescent athletes. I also work with a lot of general, consumers. So mom and dad, if you're on this call, awesome. This is great for you too. Nutrition is applicable to all of us. So especially now, really prioritizing nutrient-dense foods, eating whole foods. So today's title is Eating for Health and Fueling for Success. So performance, that is. Really something, a part of the platform I've created is this ability that you need to eat for health and you need to fuel for athletic performance. So most of you are very high level athletes. You compete at a high level, you train at a high level, your academics are at a high level. So we need to make sure that first and foremost, we take care of our priorities, and that is eating for general health and wellness. And then performance is obviously a secondary thing. So hope you have great questions. I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as I can, because questions are more fun than me talking at you, and you'll have the slide deck available to you. All right. So what I'm going to do is figure out how to get this in front of me here, this presentation. full screen. That should work. All right, I'm having some difficulties with the presentation, Lewis. Are you able to pull it up? It disappeared from my screen entirely.
Yeah, I think if you in your screen, you should be able to click on the right and click Lewis Robinson presentation, and you should be able to see that screen too. Can you see that?
Oh, there we go. Yes. Yep. I think my internet is finicky, so I'm up in my office in the corner here. So there we go. Perfect. So I'm going to skip over my background. Those are available for you. I've been a part of a lot of organizations, but I really just want to get into the nuts and bolts so you guys have ample time for questions. So we can go ahead and go on to the next slide. So this is kind of what I opened the presentation with. So really, really important. I know that it's really basic information for most of you. Again, especially if you've heard me present on this before, but there's a true difference between eating and fueling. You know, really utilizing nutrition as a tool, right? So most of you are familiar with tools and how we have a hammer, maybe a screwdriver, and that each has their function and their purpose. Right? So same thing with nutrition. Our fats, our carbohydrates, our proteins, they all serve a certain function. So we use them at appropriate times for not only performance, but first and foremost, our health. So right now you're at the critical ages still for growing your bones, your tissues. So developing those efficiently and effectively comes from consuming the right foods and a balanced plate. So we'll talk more about the plate today because that's truly the fundamentals. But our nutrition really is a tool and it helps support our short-term and our long-term goals. So critically in this time with the pandemic and, you know, everybody's talking about ways to boost their immune system and, you know, all these hacks, if you will, which, you know, there's not a lot of science, especially since we don't have a lot of research on the COVID-19 virus right now. All we know is we can control what we can. And that's truly a big part of today's presentation, as well as in this time, you may not be able to control the stay-at-home order or all the restrictions, you know, that have prevented you from getting out and training with your teammates or other people or just doing general stuff, going to school, academics, everything is completely shifted. So what we can do is in our homes and in our yards, we can control what we can and we can leave the rest. So nutrition is one of those things. Fortunately, you know, a lot of you young ladies have some phenomenal parents and coaches that are very supportive. So encouraging them, right, to be on the same page of you of talking about, you know, what should I be eating for general health? How does the grocery shopping take place? All of those conversations are really, really important to support your health, manage a healthy body weight. Again, nutrition is a tool for good health. So we need to eat sufficient fruits, vegetables, whole grains, high quality proteins in order to fight off disease and illness. That's truly the best way to prevent getting sick and falling, you know, victim to this COVID virus is truly washing our hands, you know, practicing good hygiene, not just with our hands and our bodies, but also with our foods, washing off your fruits and vegetables, making sure that all of those things are prepared and temped to the correct level. But diving more into, you know, sports nutrition and eating versus fueling, we use fueling as a way to enhance our athletic performance. So after you've eaten breakfast, lunch, and dinner, according to that balanced plate, and I'll show you that plate before if you haven't seen it, then it's time to take that step further and say, what can we eat to fuel athletic performance? So that's good proteins, high quality carbohydrates. Maybe it's ramping up those calories in between meals, right? Because we want to prevent injuries. And especially when we talk about, you know, decreasing risk for, you know, chronic fatigue, exhaustion, all these things, that's where fueling comes into play. If we aren't consuming sufficient foods, sufficient calories, we're going to fall victim to feeling tired, fatigued. We're going to maybe experience stress fractures, which can come into play if you don't consume calcium and vitamin D in the appropriate levels. Okay, so one thing that I'm really trying to hit home with every single team and athlete organization I talk with, doesn't matter who you are, nutrition is your secret weapon, right? You are all really good and you're going to be even better by continuing to train and to work hard and as you progress through and mature. But keep in mind that when you get to that next level, you're all good. So what are you going to do that's going to set you aside, right? Controlling those controllables. There's a lot of athletes out there right now that are really on point with their training, with their nutrition, and then there's a lot of athletes that are, you know, being really inconsistent with their nutrition. They're sleeping in, maybe they're taking more naps throughout the day. They're missing out on their academics. They're missing out on their water. Just having a routine is really key. So we're going to talk a little bit more on the next slide about that. So controlling your controllables, especially during this time of uncertainty. So each day, and I've been telling every single person that I work with that we need to start our day with intent. So you ladies as well, and if there are any parents or coaches, ladies, men, it doesn't matter who you are. We all have schedules. We're all humans. We all have to wake up for something. So set your day with intent. What do you need to accomplish, right? So that could be, I want to make sure that I get in 25 ounces of water right away in the morning, and I want to have breakfast. I want to make sure that I have a protein, that I maybe have a carbohydrate because I have a training session at 11 a.m. and I need to make sure that I'm prepared for it. So beginning your day with what do I have to do, or framing it in the context of what do I get to do. I want to take a step back and talk about, how hard it is right now mentally too, to be pressed with not having a consistent schedule, not having, people that are holding you accountable, going to class, going to structured practices, training sessions. That can be hard now. Now you have to be in charge and kind of take initiative and say, hey, you know what? I have these goals. I want to maintain my condition. I want to maintain my training, my nutrition, my academics, all those things, establishing those objectives and being mindful of them, and getting up and getting dressed for success. Really how you, approach each day, how you feel is also going to translate into your performance too. So if you're not feeling the best about the fact that you didn't brush your teeth, you didn't drink water, you didn't eat breakfast, you didn't bathe, you didn't actually put on real clothes, that's going to make an impact. And that's hitting actually a lot of people. And I know it sounds kind of silly to talk about it, but it's true. If you wake up and you stay in your pajamas all morning and you kind of fumble around the house without a plan, you can find that it'll be 2 p.m. and you've not accomplished anything, and that's going to make you more stressed out. So we want to take a step back and we want to start each day with an intent. Acknowledge how you feel. If you're feeling kind of lost in this disarray, that's okay. You're not alone. This is a stressful time. It's different, but what we can do again is getting back to what we can control, and that's the basic of sleep, nutrition, hydration, our academics. It's really, really important to go to sleep at the same time each day and to wake up at the same time each day throughout the week, especially. Trying to set your alarm. If you don't have a rigid class schedule right now, make a goal to set your alarm, right, for 8 in the morning. And by 9 o'clock, you're having breakfast, you're doing these things. That's really helpful. And the same thing of going to sleep at night. Going to sleep at the same time is really, really important. We have a circadian clock that we release melatonin at a certain time, right? And around 8 to 10 o'clock, depending upon where you're at, you can start secreting that. So you should be ready to go to sleep. So it's making sure that you are getting things accomplished throughout the day so that you leave sufficient time to wind down for bed. It's really important that you're not trying to, crunch schoolwork in, and then also on social media super late. And I did talk about this before too. It's still applicable. Binge watching movies and things like that can really take away from your schedule, and really utilizing your time. Again, that's something you can control right now. We can't control that we can't go outside, and you may again not be able to get together with your teammates, but this time is so important right now that we just stay the course and we keep a schedule, we keep consistent, and we stay on top of our meal times as well. So if you wake up and you're eating at the same time, all those things fall into place. It's just like before. So it's not like we're in a pandemic. We kind of switch our mindset. But staying active out in the yard, making sure your plate is colorful, setting up calls like this is great. Virtual engagement's really important. And then I'll kind of speed through the rest of it. But one thing that I want to highlight is not cutting out meals. Do not cut out meals at all. I have to say that a lot because there's a lot of people that are concerned about their body composition and gaining weight, and they just feel as though because I'm not going to school or I'm not going to training, but they're still training at home, which you ladies are, I know that, and you're still participating in regular cardio exercises, and many of you are also, competing at the next level, so you have your strength and conditioning program already set up, so you're kind of working towards that. So you are likely being more active, so now more than ever, it's important that you don't cut out meals, and if it seems like you're eating a lot of food, you're at home, it's just kind of different, use a smaller plate and then eat more meals throughout the day. But we can go ahead and go on to the next slide here. All right, so just before I, talk about the plate for performance, this is a plate that would support your goals. So this would be a snack, right? So this would be a great thing in between. It's colorful, it has lots of fiber, there's some protein with the egg. Egg is rich in choline, which is great for neurotransmitter production. So that's why eggs make a great snack in the morning or breakfast, because again, choline is great to get our cognition going. Also a good source of protein B vitamins. The fat in the egg also is very satiating. There's Greek yogurt in there with some berries and peanut butter. Berries are also super high in antioxidants, really important right now too for immune health. And then we have our veggies, and then of course the fruit. And fruit can also be applicable to carbohydrates. No, there's not a whole grain on this plate right now because this is more of an in-between. So that being said, this plate is specific to a goal of getting more energy in the tank, but then also allotting time for training. So again, it's not too high in fat, it's not too high in protein or even carbs. It's a perfect balance. And again, your plate should support your goal. So if you're trying to gain weight, you need to have a much larger plate. The size of that plate would also increase for protein and then even carbohydrates and even maybe healthy fats, right? So keeping in mind that your plate reflects your performance and your goals. So your body composition, training cycles, overall athletic performance. If you are trying to maintain your weight, there are plates according to the USOC. On the next slide, there is a weight management plate. And I've shown this plate before, but there's different plates and they change, right, based on weight gain, weight loss. So during season right now would be a great time to keep eating consistently and making sure you're getting in that high quality whole grain, the lean protein, the fruits and vegetables, your dairy. Dairy is a really great source of protein, vitamins, minerals, and even electrolytes too, of course, for hydration. But this is a very aesthetically pleasing. If you go to nutritionteamusa.org, they have a ton of great nutrition resources. They have My Plate, which is what you're probably likely going to see in your schools, but this is a more aesthetically pleasing plate. So if anyone has questions, which I hope you do, at the end of this presentation, we can talk more about that plate. And then moving forward, we talk a little bit about hydration here. Again, these are the fluid recommendations, and I did talk about this when I presented to you before. But again, it's truly getting back to the basics. This pandemic shouldn't really change anything in our nutrition. We still need to eat those 3 to 4 consistent meals. We still need to hydrate. And if you're, weighing yourself pre and post training, if you're doing 2 to 3 hours of training per day, there's a few athletes I'm working with in Ohio actually that they've cranked up the heat in their own home, and they've been doing a lot of plyo work and box jumps, and then they're doing sprints outside, and they're exercising and they're training. And I say exercising because a lot of them too are they're working out with their parents. So their parents are engaging in the exercise, and of course it's training for them because they're athletes, but they're doing multiple sessions. So they've actually been sweating out quite a bit of fluid. So it's important to remember that fluid, right? It's still cold outside here in Michigan, but we're still sweating. We still need to replace those fluids. So for every pound lost, we need to have about 2.5 to 3 cups of fluid. So that's important, right? And then if you go on to the next slide, Lewis, we can see that urine chart. And it's so funny when we are talking about this, I always have people laughing, but I don't get to see your faces, but I'm sure you're kind of giggling. But truly the best way to measure hydration is to look at your urine in the toilet. When you wake up in the morning, and then even, after training throughout the day, acknowledge where your urine's at. What color does it look like? Is it that, peach yellow, where it's very light, that's very hydrated? Or is it more in that, dark yellow, almost brown, where you're dehydrated? A lot of people wake up, a lot of athletes, it doesn't matter who you are, most people are waking up dehydrated because we're going multiple hours, right, without having any fluid. So it's really important that you really tackle that hydration early on, right away in the morning, because again, as we see on the slide, any decreases in any declines in your hydration can lead to cramping, fatigue, a decline in your concentration and overall focus, and that's as little as 1 to 2% of your total body weight. So that's why it's great to weigh yourself pre and post. And if we go on to the next slide, we can acknowledge just, very vaguely where your calorie needs are. And again, this is just for general health and wellness. You factor in athletic performance and supporting those training demands, you're going to need a lot more. So most of you ladies are going to fall into that 2,000 to 2,400 and then some, right? Just for the basic essentials. So you factor in training, you're looking at about 3,000 calories, depending upon where you're at. So this is just great for information purposes. If we go on to the next slide, I did show this before too. This is just kind of a sample meal of, what a typical day would look like if it was 2,200 calories. And again, keep in mind that if you're training more, you have more conditioning sessions, you're going to want to increase your snacks in between, and then likely even increasing your portion sizes of protein. So this is very generic, but again, it's covering all the bases of our dairy, our lean protein, our fruit, our vegetables, making sure that we're getting in at least that portion of what we need. So again, throughout the day, if you're at home, it's really great. You can have access to snacks, and I do have a few snacks on the next few slides. Trail mix is really great, string cheese, yogurt parfaits, overnight oats are really awesome. And this is something too that is really, really important, and it's so key for you to get into the habit of now. Eating for injury prevention and health. So your athletes, all of the things that you do is all about, of course, performing at a high level, but in addition to preventing injury, because if you're sidelined, you can't really enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? So we really want to focus on getting in high quality nutrients to support bone health, proper muscle contraction, making sure that we have sufficient energy throughout the day to not only focus on the field, but also academically. And again, we will get back to sports. So that's why right now it's really important that we continue and we be diligent with our nutrition, and looking at, protein, those high quality protein sources, our meat, our fish, beans, eggs, dairy, tofu, really, really key for, supporting lean mass right now, bone mineral density. And of course, protein's key, but it doesn't give us energy. Our high quality carbohydrates do, so those whole grains are essential to consume as well. In addition to lots of fruits and vegetables, the more color, the better. It's key to eat the rainbow, if you will. So fruits and veggies offer us a lot of vitamin C. They're rich in fiber. The more color, the better. Anything with color anything with a pigment essentially is going to offer you those antioxidants. So don't demonize fruit. It's all good. Same with vegetables. Zinc-rich foods. So if anyone's, nursing an injury right now, or they have any challenges with bruising or wound healing, zinc is really great, and it's high, of course, in our proteins and our meat sources. So meat, fish, nuts, whole grains, even breads can be really great. So zinc is essential. And then our healthy fats, chia seeds, walnuts, flax, all those things can be added to your smoothies and your parfaits. And they can also serve as a great way to also satiate you too, right? Because they're fats. And then, of course, vitamin D and calcium. Again, we need to consume about 3 servings of dairy per day to support proper bone health. And keep in mind, vitamin D and calcium work together. So D helps absorb the big C. That's really kind of a great way to remember it. So you consume your calcium, but vitamin D helps you absorb it into the bone. So it's also found in some plant sources too, some leafy greens, but in very minimal amounts. So that's why they say dairy is really important, because it's going to offer you, about that 1,300 milligrams of calcium that you would need at your age. So if we go on to the next slide.
Wendi, I think you've been muted there. I don't know how that has happened.
Oh boy, how long was that?
Just that slide, just the start of this slide. So.
Oh, okay, great, awesome. Okay, so meal size and thank you. Meal size and frequency. Again, I just want to hit on the fact that your training and are all priorities. They're very important. So your plate needs to reflect that. So making sure that when you're sitting down for those meals, you're looking at your plate. This picture, this illustration here is a great photo because, again, it goes back to color. We have our fruit and veggie, we have antioxidants, we have fiber, we have healthy fats, the almond, the egg, good protein, and even grapes. So grapes are really important around your training because they have a lot of water and they have sugar, right, to replenish your glycogen stores, which is essential for you. I mean, you could burn 600 calories plus in a match, or if you're training at home, right? And again, if you're doing all that, I don't know what your conditioning looks like, but I've looked at a lot of programs for a lot of people. And in fact, I would say they're more active right now. So that's why I would say really, really important to look at your meals, look at the size of them. And then if you need to add in more meals, you definitely should do that. So again, going back to slide 7, right, we have the basic caloric needs of 2,300 to 3,000 calories, and it could be greater with more training. So that's just really important. So if you're feeling tired by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're exhausted, that's a clear indicator that you're not eating enough. Or if you're super hungry right before bed, you need to revisit your intake. That's just really important. Okay. All right. And then the next slide Sure, I'm not muted. So I've been sharing a lot of these, and maybe you've seen them if you follow me on social media, but smoothies are really great, especially now. Again, a quick, efficient way to get in some high quality protein, good amount of nutrition. If you're on the go, if you do have a, a schedule where you're training at home, and then also you're doing your coursework and you're doing quite a bit, or you're confined to a specific area, smoothies are just a really great way. So here's a delicious recipe. Of course, sneaking in some spinach because greens are key. And then just a few more slides are very similar to that. They are some recipes, and then I also have some energy bites. I haven't posted them on my website yet, but I can send the recipes to Lewis. I did share them with Cheryl, so she has those. Emma's wonderful mother, she's fantastic. So if she wants to share those, I can absolutely share them as well. But really great recipes. So having some of these higher calorie, higher nutrient snack foods around the house can be a really great way to fill the training gaps or the deficiencies in energy throughout the day. So if we go through, you can skip through down. That's a higher calorie one that's really yummy, but it's really good. So overnight oats, that's something that everybody can consume. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete or not, or what your training goals are. Oats are a super way to get in good nutrition right away in the morning. And here are just some different options. Of course, you can add in a protein powder, a milk of your choice, milk substitute, put them in a big bowl. Add all of your ingredients and then split them up into little mason jars so that you can have them, for the 5 days of the week. You can enjoy it with your whole family, or it can make a great snack. These are really great strategies. Again, we want to make sure that we're getting in high quality protein, some fruit, nuts and seeds also, again, for some of those healthy fats, omegas, because I know a lot of people are scared to eat fat, and you're always told protein and carbohydrates as athletes, but the fact of the matter is we still need to have the healthy fat in our diet to support our hormone function, and then also decrease exercise-induced inflammation, which is a very normal physiological response that you have, of course, from training. And then you have your sweeteners. So don't be afraid of cinnamon or vanilla or nutmeg. Those are actually really great ways to boost your immune system. So add those things in. Agave is very high in sugar, so if you really want to, make it super yummy and delicious, you can add that in. And then if we go on to the next slide, this one is a weight gain. So I had some questions on the podcast I was on Tuesday night just about the Chunky Monkey and how is that a weight gain. So keep it in mind, I don't have the calories up there, but with the almond butter, right, we have about 200 calories there. You add in the chocolate milk, which is great. It's high quality protein, electrolytes, minerals, and then of course carbohydrates to replenish your glycogen stores. But you add in, protein in addition to that. You're looking at a much higher calorie smoothie, right, into the 500s, and that can be considered a weight gain smoothie because after a meal, you throw that in too, right? You're looking at, you have your dinner, which could be about 500 calories plus the 500 calories here. That's about 1,000 calories. So we know that if you are interested in trying to gain weight, or if you're struggling to maintain your weight, adding in some of these smoothies in addition to your dinner can be a really great way to do that, in a very efficient and effective way, right? Because liquid is typically easier to down than, trying to consume a whole nother meal. Okay. And this is something that I'm excited about that I make because I love working with soccer players, but nutrition truly is your secret weapon, right? It's your ability to outcompete your competition. So again, taking it to the step of, I can control what I can. Nutrition is one of those controllables. What am I willing to do that others aren't willing to do to be the best that I can be, to be great? Because you're very good, all of you ladies. Everybody has the ability to be even better if we really utilize our nutrition as an opportunity. So there's a really great quote that I really love: opportunity favors the prepared. So keeping in mind that this will end. So if you eat and train according to your goals, you will reach them. And when this lifts, you're going to be in the best condition possible versus those that are on the couch, they're sleeping in, they're not hydrating, they're not eating correctly, they're going to be in a worse spot. So I just want to summarize with that, and I have a contact slide on the end, so if you have additional questions, and I do work with those on a one-on-one basis. I love presenting, I love talking with people, so if you have questions about meal planning or grocery shopping, or decreasing any inflammation, sometimes if we overconsume certain foods and we don't have a good balance of our healthy fats, that's a whole nother level. That's where a dietitian comes into play, and we're really here to serve you. And if you're also having issues with nutrient timing, that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. I have some great blogs on my website with, just recipes and, what is a good protein carbohydrate snack. So I definitely want to direct you there. But with that, if there's questions, I hope there is, I would love to answer those. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, does anyone have questions? I've got a couple that people have sent in to me, but as I say, if you want to continue to just write them in that text box, if you have them, I think that'll be great. And I know Wendy will answer them. I know, like anything, to all the players here, there's so much information. And I think, as you kind of alluded to, this is a topic that we could probably spend 24 hours on. But I think a couple of questions that went into me, Wendy, if you will. There were some questions on, well, Jaden Glover has just wrote in and asked the question that somebody else asked me. So she must be reading my mind. So Jaden, are you on? Can you unmute and you want to ask Wendy your question?
Yeah. So what's the best meals to have before a game?
Great. Yeah, fabulous question, Jaden. Thank you for asking that. The best meal before a game is going to be, so it's more of a nutrient timing thing. So the meal that you want to have before a game is going to be the same meal that you would have on any other day, because there's no magic meals. So that meal 4 hours out, if we go to the plate, Lewis, and I'm not sure if, I think it's on like slide 7. Remember how I talked about, breakfast, lunch, and dinner being according to that plate? There's nothing special about it. It's a whole grain, it's a quality protein, a fruit and a vegetable. So for example, a good meal would be, a chicken breast on a salad. Maybe you have some greens, or you can add in a whole grain tortilla with some avocado, and then maybe some tomatoes, and then maybe a serving of grapes and some low-fat milk or some skim milk, or you can do water, right? We want to make sure that we're satisfying the plate. So every single meal leading up to that game should look the same. There's no special meal that's going to give you that bolster and performance. It's truly all the meals leading up to that one event. So before any game, right, we might have a specific routine that we do, and that's what it's truly about, Jaden. So I'm glad you asked that, because I really want you all to start thinking in terms of, I have this routine. I eat my high quality meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they're always the same, especially on game day. I eat the same thing. I don't try anything new on game day. Never try a new meal on game day. So if you know that, eating whole grain pasta with grilled chicken, or a turkey sandwich, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with, a banana, that sits well with you, you want to keep continuing to have that. So that's why I always encourage, when you're trying to explore new meals and new foods, definitely doing it on practice day, so that you can tell, like, oh, okay, experimenting with that doesn't work well for me. I don't digest that well. So you want to make sure, again, it's just a traditional main meal, right, with all the components of the plate, 4 hours out, and then 2 hours out. So it's an acronym of 4-2-1. 4 hours out, main meal, right? 2 hours out, it's a protein and carbohydrate. So that may be a string cheese and a banana, or it's a couple of hard-boiled eggs, or cottage cheese and a cluster of grapes. So again, it's focusing on a protein and carbohydrate. That's 2 hours out. And then about an hour out is sipping, or even maybe just, something that's digested and well tolerated, which is a higher sugar carbohydrate or a fruit. So you could do like a rice cake with some jelly on it. You really want to watch out for having too much protein, and you definitely want to limit fat right before your game, right? Because that's going to take way longer to digest, and then it's not going to be available for fuel. So that's why we say 4-2-1, or I say 4-2-1, because it really gives your body sufficient time to digest those nutrients, and then fill your muscles with glycogen, and then you have that available protein in there as well to prevent protein breakdown while you're competing. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Awesome. And then Wendy, great question, Jay. And I think that the next topic that came up, and someone submitted it beforehand, was about when you're playing multiple games. And I don't know if we spoke about this last time, but I think maybe a problem or a challenge that a lot of our players have is they are playing maybe on a Saturday and then on a Sunday as well, or they get to college and they're playing a big conference, you're playing Friday, Sunday, which I think we all know isn't probably enough time to fully recover from a big game. Do you have any advice, tips, hints on what players can do, like even youth players right now who might have to train Thursday, play Friday, and manage a busy schedule around that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. That's a great topic to talk about. So first and foremost, we always want to eat real food. We want to try and, get the meals in. That's strategy one. We want to make sure we get in sufficient sleep. And then specifically talking to the nutrient side of things. So I say breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe now on those days, like that Thursday, Friday, you want to have a fourth meal. So it's a second breakfast or it's a second lunch. And then in addition to that, I would say immediately after that game, you would do, a chocolate milk, a banana, and a string cheese right after the game. And then you go have another, like an actual meal, right? You have your main meal. And then before you go to bed, some cottage cheese is really great. Some form of protein, which is a slow digesting whey protein, which is going to help repair those muscles that have been broken down. And again, you're competing the next day, right? So we need to increase our protein and our carbohydrates to make sure that we're not only repairing, but we're replacing what we have lost. And we want to have a full tank going into the next day. So front loading your calories, and then maybe even increasing the breakfast depending upon what time that match is at. I mean, if it's in the morning, of course, you might have to get up a little bit earlier, but we want to front load those calories as much as possible so we can make sure that there's sufficient fuel in the tank. So I tell a lot of my athletes to treat your body as if it's a tank. So if you know, right, that we're going to have to dump out a lot, and you do dump out a lot as you're expending this fuel throughout the game, you have to replace that and make sure that you enter the next day with a full tank. So the best way to do that really is to eat something before bed, like have a pre-bed snack. And there's a lot of research to support, consuming this dairy source, whether it's cottage cheese, string cheese, or yogurt with some berries before bed. Carbohydrates actually support serotonin and melatonin production, so you can get a more restful night of sleep, helping you repair, right, and to replenish in your brain. Is also able to, clear out the plaque throughout the evening if you get a restful night of sleep. So by doing all those things, you can wake up refreshed, ready to tackle that next match.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jocelyn has a question. Jocelyn, are you on?
Yeah. My question was, what's the best snack for like after workouts?
Yeah, great question, Jocelyn. So it's going to be that high quality protein and the carbohydrate. So we want to have, a protein would be string cheese, yogurt, cottage cheese, turkey, chicken, tofu if you want to go plant-based. What you want to make sure you have is whatever's available. So I always try to defer to what's convenient for you, because no one just has a chicken breast laying around, right? Chicken is great because it's really rich in all of our amino acids, especially leucine, which is the #1 driver for muscle protein synthesis, but so is milk. So you can do chocolate milk, right? Because it has that high quality protein, and you can have, a banana or an apple with that on the go. Tart cherry juice is also a really excellent thing to do because it offers you that quick sugar, which is going to help replenish those glycogen stores. But you always want to pair that with the protein. So however you are able to, create a pantry out of your backpack, if you will, on the go, that's really the best thing to have after your workout. So what you really want to focus on is about 15 to 25 grams of protein, depending upon, how strenuous the workout was. I would say for most people, 20 to 30 grams of protein, and then about 50 to 75 grams of carbohydrates. So a really great way to do that is one of the smoothies that I shared with you. If you can blend up all those ingredients with some milk and then yogurt, and then even some high quality whey protein powder that is Informed Choice or NSF approved, and I did talk about that. If you have questions on that, please let me know. But that's a great way to have all the protein you need. And then of course you add in the fruits and even a little bit of nut butter, and you're getting in even more protein and carbohydrates. But we really want to focus on having protein and carbs after the workout, because fat takes, again, longer to absorb, right? So we want to make sure that we have something that's rapidly digested and utilized so we can, right, repair those muscles.
Very cool. Next question, Taryn, you got your weekly great question. So you there?
Yeah.
Go for it.
What is one food or snack we should try to avoid before a game or as we're stuck at home right now?
Yeah, so I would say, again, this is really important, is to not try anything new on game day or even like an intense training session, like it's best to go with that routine. And that's why establishing a routine is so important, because you know what works well for you, and there's no, extra hydrochloric acid that's being released because of the anxiety of like, is this going to be digested well? Because that's a part of the digestion process, right? The foods that we eat and our stress response, we can increase the HCl, which can create more acidity, and that can cause cramps. So we don't want to do that. So the best thing is to avoid what you haven't done before and to do what you have. So if you're in your house, that's why, preparation and planning ahead of time, and that grocery shopping that we talked about at the beginning is so key, so that you have those foods on hand. You have the berries, you have bananas, you have string cheese, you have yogurt, you have those things that work well for you, so that they're available in the house, they're accessible, that you can consume them with the appropriate nutrient timing put into place so you don't get sick, and again, it's digested. So Taryn, what I would ask you is, what are the foods that you enjoy, based on what we've talked about today? Do you like berries? Maybe a handful of berries and a banana with the string cheese would be a really great way, to have some fuel in the tank 45 minutes out from competition.
That's awesome. That answers your question, Taryn, I'm sure. I had one other topic, Wendy, that was, and James just asked another question. What about when another relative, I think, real life issue for a lot of youth players at the high level is they are spending a lot of time on the road. And sometimes that's not always with the team on a bus and doing it that way. So sometimes they're on their own. If they don't, obviously, I think preparation is everything by the sounds of it. But when they don't, maybe what are some good options that they can stop and pick something up? And when they are eating meals out, like what can they do to help performance, help recovery while on the road, or good tips that you've seen with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So if we don't pack our lunches, we can always stop at either, if it's possible to stop at a grocery store, there's always a salad bar at most big stores to, load up on veggies and build your plate according to that plate. But if you're not able to do that, of course, you can go and you can pick up some apples, oranges, bananas, hit the string cheese, the dairy section. They have individual yogurts you can purchase. You can also get a package of string cheese, and it's so cheap and it's so nutrient dense. Again, it's 8 grams of protein per string cheese, but it's like $2.50 at Meijer for a dozen string cheeses. And then you can also, get yogurt too. You can get it in bulk. You can get it in individual servings. Nut butter, same thing. They have little nut butters and packages that you can quick pick up. You can go head to the granola bar aisle. So watch out for granola bars. They're not super optimal. They're really high in sugar, and you want to make sure that it has at least 9 grams of protein. So RX bars are really good. Quest bars are a good protein bar. So if you want to do bars, look at the label. I mean, look at the label on anything, but you want to make sure that it at least has protein in it. It has some fiber and some carbohydrates. Those things can be really great for, on the go, of course. And then also oatmeal packets. Those are awesome. You can literally make those, they have, most grocery stores have kitchenettes, which is really cool. But if it doesn't, you have those little packs, you can create rolled oats and you can make that in the car as well. And then there's also the ready to drink beverages. So of course, chocolate milk, there's a lot of, muscle milk is a lactose-free one, but, chocolate milk, Fairlife milk has ready to drink beverages that offer, some of them are about 22 grams of protein, and they're really delicious, and they do store well, right? Because they're shelf stable. So those beverages are great to grab on the go. You can also get these from gas stations. Beef jerky is a great source of protein. Watch the sodium, but again, salt is helpful. Salt is beneficial for our heart health, and if you're sweating out those electrolytes. Bananas, you can buy, a dozen bananas at a gas station, and yogurts too. You can get all these things at gas stations now, which is really tremendous. But I would say too, if you're on the road and you're going as a team or a group, everybody just go to the grocery store, buy all those things in bulk, and then when you get to your hotel and where you're staying, you can load up that fridge. Another caveat to that is that planning component, right? Call your hotel ahead of time and ask, do you have a kitchen? Do you serve breakfast? Is there, a fridge in the room? Those things are important so that you know that if I go to a grocery store, I have the opportunity to put those things in the fridge. You could also save your money too. A lot of the hotels these days offer, they have a bowl of fruit of bananas, apples, they even have yogurt, hard-boiled eggs. That's another thing you could grab on the go too. But calling ahead, oftentimes your hotel is going to have all of those things available to you so that it can, help you save some money, and then it's available right away.
Yeah, awesome. And Coach James just asked the same. Can you hear me okay? There's an echo there, I think. I've got that on. Coach James just asked the same question that someone else also put in, and that was one of my last questions for you, because I know we'll run out of time a little bit here. On energy drinks and sport drinks versus water, or where is the combination? What are strong feelings? I know there's a lot of players that will drink sports drinks because it tastes better. Is there a time for it? Is the high electrolyte drinks, are they optimal, and at what times? And when should our players be looking to introduce those, if ever? And what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So I'm just going to throw out, I wrote quite an extensive article with Simply Faster on this. So if you could navigate to Simply Faster, I talk about sports drinks and I talk about how they stack up to chocolate milk and water. There's also a beverage hydration index that I discuss in there too, and that's really illustrating our ability to absorb those things and why water and even, milk is a more hydrating, well-absorbed beverage that's actually more effective. And if you look at the data, I don't have it in front of me, but it's a really cool chart that I do reference in that article that illustrates how much more well tolerated, well absorbed, well hydrated a milk beverage would be when compared to a sports drink. And there's been research conducted in Texas with about 100 football players, high school football players, that consumed chocolate milk, and then in comparison to water, and then even a sports drink after they did bench press and sprinting. And what they found was that the chocolate milk actually helped the athletes recover better. And in fact, they were able to perform more reps and then a higher weight too. So they found great results with doing the chocolate milk. So energy drinks, there's never a good time for those. Like I say to all of my athletes, especially those that play at the college level too, we get our energy from food, and that's in the form of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. Caffeine will give you maybe a bolster in energy for a little bit. And yes, we have some research to support that it does decrease, time to fatigue and things like that. But long-term sustainable energy comes from eating real food and, consistent meals. And keeping in mind that these caffeine and overly processed sports drinks often can keep you up at night too, right? And they contain a lot of glucose, and sometimes that doesn't sit well in the stomach. And again, caffeine disrupting our sleep, it has a 6-hour half-life. So if you consume it, around game time, it's still in your system by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock when you're going to bed. So I would really, discourage against, of course, energy drinks and caffeine, but sports drinks have their place. And that would be when you're on the field, like actually in the game, not after, not before. You can sip on one before if you need to, if you didn't consume sufficient carbohydrates throughout the day, because again, it has glucose. But I would say on the field is the time to have those. And then after the game would be the best time to have chocolate milk. Because again, the protein and carbohydrates, and we know we have the data, the beverage hydration index, that it's most well absorbed and can help support recovery in the most efficient way possible. And it's cheaper, like it's so much cheaper, so save your money.
Well, that's really important as well, isn't it? For sure. Well, thanks, Wendi. I know we're kind of coming to the end of the time here, but I really appreciate it. And I know I speak for our players and saying thanks for giving us an hour of your time and sharing a small piece of the information. And I said, I'm sure this is something that shouldn't end in a 50-minute presentation. There's so many more layers to it, especially for high-level athletes. I know, speaking from our experience, we've had a couple of our older academy players that I work with who I've spoke about and have seen huge improved performances since been working with you and communicating with you like that. So I think that's a testament to this is an advantage that can separate elite players from elite players. If our players want to get in touch with you, can they contact you? Are you taking on clients? And if they want to reach out on the contact information you gave us, are they free to do that? Or what's that process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you put the final slide, my contact information up there. I'm reachable. You can contact me via email. You can go to my website. I actually have a consult form that you could fill out, or that your parents could fill out too. I also am very active on social media, so I share a lot of great nutrition content. You can direct message me there as well. I am taking on new athletes. Again, I work with people virtually, so we can do calls, we can do Skype, Zoom. I'm a lot more effective when I use Zoom or WebEx. We can learn Google Hangout or FaceTime, but yeah, I am taking on new clients, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to help serve as a resource for you too. So if you have, food allergies or food sensitivities, or like I talked about, you're feeling really tired, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you really need to revisit your nutrition and making sure that you're getting in enough energy. So that's something that we can certainly take a look at. So if you have questions and you'd like to reach out, I'm more than welcome to be available for you.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate it, and we'll share that information with our players, so you will get that. And as Wendy said, if you have any other individual questions, which I think a lot of this is very individual and tailor-made for you, feel free to reach out. And again, thanks so much for the time, Wendy, and we'll keep in touch, and hopefully we'll see you back on the field at some point.
Yes, that sounds great. Thanks so much for your time, and everybody take good care of yourselves. Thanks so much.
Thank you.